Here we are. Turkey Hunting 101, episode 3. Back with the whole crew. We got Lyna, Chef Mike, Kelly, Peggy here. We're going to go over actual hunt logistics today. So what does that mean? What is it all? What do we need to be doing before the hunt, day before the hunt, day of the hunt, and if we're successful or not successful, what does that look like? So Kelly, Peggy, my turkey hunting pros, thanks for being here.
I told you I was not going to come under false pretenses. Not a pro, but
Peggy's our pro.
I can bring lots of personal experience and anecdotes to the effort here.
Excellent. Kelly, Sarah, and I were just talking about turkey hunting. This was our turkey calling competitions, and the whole idea of it to me is hilarious. That there are adults in a room deciding who sounds more like a turkey. I don't know. It's just that weird. And then the whole pro thing of hunting, right? Like we're talking about and we're kind of making light of. There's just something about a certain number of humans that they have to, we're going to do something and then we're just going to compete at it. We have to compete at it. There has to be a competition. There has to be the trophies, the ribbons, the whole thing of it. It's like when I go to dog training groups and I start making fun of people how they're just as crazy and weird as sport parents who bring their kids everywhere for trophies and ribbons. And I'm just they're like, well, if you're gonna run your dog for a competition, like, nope, just here to have fun, train for hunting. While you're doing your weird awkward competition on the weekend, I'll be like hiking and enjoying my life somewhere.
Turkey hunters also take the competition to the next level in that they do the whole slam stuff. You know, Lena, I'm expecting you to laugh at that. But they, they do something called a grand slam, which means that they get all the subspecies of turkeys in North America or the continental U.S. And then some of them even do what they call a super slam, which is they shoot or harvest a turkey in every state in the U.S. that has one, which is 49 states. So. And then you can get like your name on the website and probably a handy dandy certificate or something like that. So competition on the next level for turkey hunters
is the slam.
The slam.
Nice. Noted, recorded for future consideration. I just want all of you to picture me slamming. Just picture how that would go. Like, I'd be like the anti-slammer.
Well, Lena, I think you're not alone in not wanting to be a slammer in the turkey world of women turkey hunters. Early on, in the early years of becoming an outdoors woman, which started in 1991, we did real research for preferences for how women learn. And one of the big shining things is women are not interested in competition. So if you're going to go out and shoot clay pigeons, it's not who gets the most. It's if somebody's struggling and they've shot 20 times and on the 21st clay, they finally break that clay. All the other women who are lined up go, woo, because it's not competitive, it's supportive. And that's how most adult women really prefer to learn.
Yeah, I love that. You're speaking my language, Peggy. I'm just picturing, so I was with Peggy learning to pheasant hunt and I had glasses on and I couldn't see through the glasses and I'm like trying to do the whole gun thing. It's just like my whole body's exploding because all this new data and trying to make it do new things. And I broke my glasses. So I stuck with it. I threw the glasses on the ground and kept and Peggy and Kelly were like, they checked in with me later. Kelly's like, you okay? Yeah, I broke my glasses. Is that okay? Yeah. Focused. I'm trying to do something here. It's just, so I'll just say that this point of this whole story is I experienced that support and it was very, very good. Very good. So thank you, Peggy.
Oh, my pleasure. You're teaching adult women is just a joy. And I teach children and I teach young adult men as well. And I love all of it, but that there's something really special about the bond of being with a group of beginner women. And we also have lots of men who are helpers with those programs. Like we had, Lyna, you might remember Daryl and John at that pheasant hunt. They're chosen because they're super supportive in the same way that the female instructors are.
Yeah. You should, though, hear some of the Peggy. I'd love to get you in on some of the conversations I'm having with my girlfriends, like, getting text messages like about, so let me telling them about the turkey calling. And then people are like, so let me see, he is training you, meaning Bill. He is training you to call animals to their slaughter. Friends who've done mental health check-ins. So I just think it's really interesting. So how much bias there is against this. Like, as I do this awkwardly and out loud in front of other people. Like, I was thinking about somebody that several of us know who work at the same place Mike does. And she made a post the other day about like just the beauty of everything. And it was gorgeous. And I almost sent it to Bill and said, this is who you should be training to be a hunter. So awkward. This whole process is very awkward. So anyway, I'll stop talking now, but so maybe that's why the support is necessary.
I have no doubt it would be awkward for me if I hadn't been doing it since I was a kid. When I talk to my sisters about it now, I have 3 sisters, none of them hunt. And when I talk to them about it now, they would send me the same text messages Lyna, that you just got. Like, why you're doing what and why? And I would think it feels very unnatural and awkward for them too.
Someone's husband sent me a message through his wife. Ask her if she intends to eat the birds. This is so weird.
So I'll say that some of the college age males who come through hunter education and did not grow up in a hunting family and really want to get involved but had no other opportunity, they can feel the same way as the women do. Like they don't have that family or social support other than the other college students around them who actually do hunt. But that can be a challenge too for a young adult male who is surrounded by all these other guys who have been doing this their whole life, and to try to step up and keep up with those people and avoid that competition that happens. So at all the different stages that different people enter this, there are barriers and challenges, but I think that's what, people like Bill and Kelly and I are trying to help out with, to remove those barriers no matter who you are.
Mike, do you get awkward? Is it just me?
I mean, I guess so.
He doesn't get awkward. You're nice. I like you.
I didn't grow up hunting either. So pretty much all my friends did, and I just didn't grow up around it as well. So it's a new experience, and I like to be outside. So that's part of why I want to do it. And harvesting some stuff for the freezer would be very nice.
And donating to habitat management, like we learned in the last episode.
Yes, donations. I'll continue my donations for sure.
All right, with that, let's get on to some turkey hunting logistics. Kelly, how far, what is week 1, 3 weeks away?
Oh, yes. I was just counting down the weekends I have left till turkey season madness starts. And the first season starts the 21st.
Man, that's late.
It is. And then the youth season's what? The weekend before that, or 2 weekends before that, or something like that?
Before. I think might be 2.
Yeah. We're coming up on it real fast. I don't know if you guys have been seeing any birds out strutting their stuff, Lyna. The toms I have seen more and more every day that are out looking real fancy. And they're pretty grouped up yet. So they're all, the toms are with the hens and these really large groups of birds in the flock yet, is what I'm seeing. So not a lot of maybe seeking of the hens, where the toms and the hens are separated out across the landscape. They're still all kind of grouped together, sort of in their winter groups, their winter flock units. But especially as we get really warm here over the weekend, you're going to start to see some of the quote breakup happening, where those birds really start to go their separate ways.
Cool.
Yeah, that's mostly what we've seen here as well, Kelly. Django's flushed a couple small flocks in the woods, and then out in the open spaces, we're seeing still close to double-digit turkey flocks roaming, and hens, jakes, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any strutting yet. I'm trying to think. We're gonna get out today, do a little bit more scouting, and then the next.
Have you guys taken out Lyna and Mike to do any in-person scouting yet, or?
That'll be starting next week. I'm gonna reach out to Peggy and the two of them, see when we can get out. So we'll be switching from podcast studio learning to getting out in the field. Peggy walking us around, boots on the ground style learning. Lyna and I did get out. So where the gym is, there is a nearby. It's kind of like the weird tension zone between urban growth and what used to be farm/woodlands. So the industrial park butts up. There's still wooded small little parcels interspersed between the remaining egg fields that haven't been cleared for development yet. It's well on the way, but we were able to do a little workout and then go scout for some turkeys and practice glassing, using the binos, calling. It was super windy that day, so you couldn't hear much of anything, but I'm looking forward to hearing Lyna's version of our little mini outing.
Spotted some turkey tires. That was the highlight of the trip for me. So I have vision, and then I'm seeing through these little glasses. Like, everything's awkward. I'm seeing through these little glasses, and then they're fogging up. And so I see these two brown things that could be turkeys. They're roundish in shape. And I'm like, Bill. And he's like, really? He's like, nope, those are tires, babe. He didn't say babe. I just felt that. I just felt that. Like, oh, good. Dumbass demos. I'm doing those today.
No, hey, it was great. I told you to look for shapes, anything moving out in the field, and you did.
Lyna, you know how many times I have mistaken tires, black garbage bags, crows, like any number of things for turkeys. It's very common.
We did find what did we find? What was creeping through the field?
There was a sandhill crane out there.
Yeah, crane creeping through the field. So we did find a bird. That was exciting.
Yep.
Bill has longer legs than me. I'm very worried about that for when we go really hunting.
Turkey hunting slow. We'll be doing lots of calling, stopping. It's not. I'm not allowed to just roam the woods during turkey season like I normally do.
Mike, do you worry about anything? Like I won't say I'm constantly worried, but a whole part of my brain has been assigned to thinking about turkey things. Like, it's carving out a whole new space. Like, any of that happening to you? You're just like Mr. Cool.
Yeah, pretty cool about it. Not really worried too much about any of it. Gun safety is always a big thought in my mind when out with hunters.
Bill he got two ends of the pole here.
I think Peggy said it on our first episode. So much of this will make so much more sense when you're out there doing it, and especially once you get into that first hunt. I mean, I'm probably not a very good mentor. When I took my brother-in-law out turkey hunting for the first time, I was just like, all right, show up here and we're going to go. And I mean, we had talked a little bit about gun safety before then, and he was familiar with firearms, but we didn't talk a lot about how we were going to hunt until we were out in the field doing it, for better or worse. And he just took it like a champ, took it as it came, and soaked it all in, and sort of let me dictate however we were going to do it. And I tried to be, I mean, I didn't necessarily hunt the same way that I would hunt if I was doing it on my own. I probably wasn't as aggressive with him. And I think the first few times we took a blind along just so that he could be a little bit more relaxed and feel like he could move around and stuff. So I guess my tip for a mentor would be to keep that in mind too. If you got somebody brand new, take a step back maybe from what your tactics might be, depending on what your style is to begin with, and make sure that they're comfortable every step of the way. I mean, every time we did do something in the field, every time I did something with Matt, I would try to explain why we're doing it, why I'm choosing this strategy versus this strategy, and just taking it probably a little bit slower, flying a little bit less by the seat of my pants than with him than I normally would. But when he did finally get his bird, we were doing a classic quote run and gun, Lyna, where we had spotted a bird and made a pretty aggressive move towards that bird while calling. And then everything happened real fast. Like all of a sudden the bird was coming in. And so, but he was ready for it. We had been doing a couple of days of hunting, and I was like, are you comfortable hunting this way? Like, we're going to make a pretty aggressive move on this bird. And he was. So that was super fun to see him like get a lot of confidence in a pretty short amount of time to do a pretty aggressive style of turkey hunting. So again, I think it'll make so much more sense when you're out there and enjoying that spring weather and morning and talking to Peggy or Bill, whoever you're with, and seeing how everything plays out in real time.
Thank you. This is how my brain works. Like, I'm so nervous. I'm just going to say that I'm so nervous that you're like, you turn to him, you're like, are you ready to make an aggressive move? My brain thinks hunting talk is a lot like bar talk. But I know that's about nervousness, right? That I'm like making all these strange connections in my brain and wanting to laugh a lot. So here's what I've told myself. I'm looking forward to being outside. And so then Bill asked me about the whole blind thing, right? And he's like, do you have a chair? Now I'm already awkward, and now I'm going to have the call bag on me. And then I'm thinking about hauling an armchair out for a blind. So every question, every thought creates this like little bit of an internal sarcastic giggle effect. And so I just keep soothing myself with, you're going to be outside and you love that. You're going to be outside. You love that. So that's kind of been that's probably Mike starts there without having to say it out loud or say it to himself.
Our training for the next few weeks, Lyna, is going to be fantastic. I'm going to have you loaded down with a blind, the call bag. I'm getting like a ridiculous amount of decoys put in a bag, so you have to carry that as well. You're going like just full turkey hunter. That's great. Nope. I already had two things on me. Can you tell them how joyful I was when you put the other pack on me? When we were going for the walk, I'm like, well, I don't want to carry this. So I strapped my bino harness to her, the call bag. I didn't have the blind with that time, but I told her next workout I'm making her carry the turkey blind as well. Do you remember what the highlight was for me though? Oh, yes. So I strapped the bino harness on her, and she's like, what's this for? I'm like, well, professionals will tell you binoculars, blah, blah, calls. I'm like, I use it primarily for snacks. And then we had a bonding moment. And then I broke down the little pockets by snack size, like what each pocket was for, be it the little Halloween snack size, full size candy bars, what you wanted to put further away from your body.
Bill's preseason prep. Here's the snack pockets. Here's the size of the snack that fits in this pocket.
Well, and you have to think about relation to your body. So you want anything that would melt to be further away on the pack, and anything that you want to keep, like if it's colder and you want to keep it a little warmer so you don't break your teeth on it, that needs to be near your body. So for everyone listening, those are my turkey hunting logistics.
I think there's a children's book here.
I will say, Lyna, too, for any other mentors that are listening out there, one thing that I try to do or assess right away too is and realize is that people who are new to firearms and hunting are generally so much more uncomfortable with carrying a firearm than you are. So I might carry my firearm and my blind and my decoy bag and all the things and just like go trucking through the woods. And usually I just have that person concentrate on carrying their firearm safely. And I carry everything. And if they want to add a chair, they want to carry one of the decoys, cool. But like, I want them to feel comfortable carrying their firearm first and foremost, because we might be going through thicker stuff or stuff that they could trip over. And I want them to be as comfortable as possible. And it's okay to feel a little bit, maybe nervous isn't the right word, but be aware that you do have a firearm on your person, and that I totally respect going at the pace that whatever the person who's new to the firearm wants to do in order to feel safe and comfortable.
Yeah, I guess I would add that when we do go out scouting, that you wear what you think you're going to wear. Maybe you talked about that already, so that you're sure that whatever you're planning on hunting in, that your boots are right for you, the clothes are going to fit comfortably. And, that takes a little bit of adjustment as the weather changes and everything, but to have on also when you go to the shooting range, wear what you think you're going to be wearing when you're hunting, so that you've got bulky clothes on, you're not trying to get the gun up and adjust to something that's not comfortable for you.
Yeah, that's great.
So Peggy brought up another preseason prep event, which is potentially going to the shooting range and doing something that we call patterning your shotgun. So taking the shotgun that you're going to use when you hunt, using the same load potentially that you would use the shotgun load that you're going to use to hunt the turkeys with, and firing it downrange to see what the pattern of that shot looks like when you fire it downrange. With the idea being that you want so many pellets or BBs from that shotgun shell to be in the vital zone of that turkey, so in the head and neck area. And that's what you do when we say going to pattern your shotgun preseason. You want to make sure that pattern looks like it will at the range that you think you're going to shoot at, whether that's 20 yards, 30 yards, 25 yards, that however your shotgun is sort of working with the type of shotgun load that you're using is going to be effective at lethally killing that bird. So an important part of the preseason that I still do every year. I mean, I've been using the same shotgun my entire hunting life for turkeys, but I still get it out every spring and pattern it, make sure everything is looking good. And especially if I'm changing up a turkey load, I've been moving to all non-toxic and for pretty much all the hunting that I do, regardless of the species. And so I have some new loads that I want to try this year, and a new choke in my shotgun. I don't know, Lyna and Mike, if you're familiar with what I'm talking about when we say a shotgun choke, potentially something that you screw into the end of your shotgun barrel that can help compress that shotgun pattern down. And so for turkey hunting, we're usually using something that's fairly tight, because you want that shotgun pattern to be pretty tight downrange and give you the most BBs in as small area as you can. So I'm also trying a new turkey choke this year in my shotgun setup that I haven't tried before, in addition to a new load. So there could be a little bit of experimentation that happens. I might maybe go to a different choke if I want to keep using this particular load. So it can get a little bit overwhelming. I totally understand for a new hunter, but keep it simple. I think at first, if you get a reasonably good looking pattern, meaning you get, a pretty good amount of BBs in the head and neck area that your mentor feels comfortable with, just leave it at that and don't try to finesse it anymore. If you talk to some of these other turkey hunters that are real into shotgun patterning, man, they will fire so many loads downrange and play with their choke and their shotgun load and just like try to get this perfect setup that I don't go for, and I wouldn't recommend to try for a new hunter. Just keep it simple, get something pretty effective and go with that, and don't think too much more about it after the fact.
Peggy, I understood those terms because I've been to class with Peggy.
You've got some you've got some handouts that we provided at that
I know.
pheasant
I was
hunt,
seeing
too,
them.
Yeah, good. So yeah, I totally agree with Kelly. Turkey loads pack a bit of a punch. And if you're going to go out to the shooting range and like try to do even 10 cycles through, you're going to be sore, and then you're potentially not going to want to pull the trigger when the turkey is standing in front of you because you're remembering what that felt like. So what I do for brand new shooters is we just shoot some target loads at paper just to get comfortable shooting. And, you know, I use the turkey targets that have a turkey silhouette printed on them so people can get used to their, how they need to mount the gun and be able to see down the barrel correctly and get that shot at least going in the right spot. And then after a few of those lighter just target loads, then we would transition to try to figure out the pattern for the actual turkey loads that you use so that you don't beat yourself up, because I like to say that suffering is optional. There are people out there who are like hardcore, got to have a 12 gauge, 3.5-inch shell, super turkey load. Even for, you know, a robust person, those can knock you out and make you feel like not shooting. Not literally knock you out, but there's some pain involved. And you don't need that to successfully harvest a turkey.
Mic drop. So, Peggy, we sat down with Sarah, the biologist from Columbia County last week. We talked about habitat. So Mike and Lyna, they were exposed to where the turkeys roost, what they're doing, and the different habitat types. So we'll definitely be reviewing that as we go through this. So, and we touched on range works, patterning air shotguns. Peggy, what are we going to be doing over the next couple weeks leading into season with the new hunters? Yeah, that's my question.
Well, I think we should try to get to the shooting range like next week early on and do that maybe even a couple of times. I think we should definitely do boots on the ground in the areas that you've lined up for people to hunt. I think we need to, you know, look at clothing and comfort, talk even more about expectations like we did the first time. So, you know, I take it that you and Lyna have already talked about hunting from a blind and having a chair. And I think that's a really good plan for beginner hunters. Some people, and Mike might feel like this, you might want to keep open the option of not having a pop-up blind. You know, maybe you're going to take downed wood from the forest floor and pile that around a tree to make somewhat of a blind for yourself. And then you would have a really big, wide tree, preferably as wide as your shoulders, behind your back, and then have that natural blind in front of you, and you can hunt that way too. It's a little harder, especially if you don't, if you feel like you're not going to be able to sit still. Wind is going to be more of a factor, but you have all this peripheral vision so that you can see the red squirrels and the crows and those other critters who are trying to mess up your turkey hunt. And, you know, you just get to see a little more. Both ways are perfectly wonderful. It just depends on what you want to do. Oftentimes I'll start out in a blind with new hunters, and then when we start getting antsy, if nothing's happening, I'll say, hey, you want to take a walk? We might do a run and gun like Kelly did. So
I like it. Peggy, when we're doing boots on the ground, should we also, you had mentioned clothing, should we bring the blind decoys, that kind of stuff too? Practice, we could even practice these different scenarios when we're scouting.
Yeah, so I always find that even though I try to have a really good plan and super good communication, once you get there, you got to be a little flexible because things can change. Andy, shut up. Sorry about the dog. But it's good to go over all of those scenarios ahead of time so that at least you're aware that that might be something that would happen. So yeah, just to know that those are all choices, opportunities, and also that as a new hunter, you have a say in all of that too. It might be that your mentor feels like, man, we really got to get over there right now and put this plan on this bird. And if you're not up to it and they're saying, let's go, 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 that's taking away the fun of it. So as a mentor, I always like to say, all right, here's one thing that we could do. But if you don't want to do that, here's the other option. And the other option might not get you as close to a bird or get you a shooting opportunity, but you're still outside, right, Lyna? You're still outside and learning, and you know, maybe your goal isn't to knock down the biggest bird, and that's okay. Maybe you think your goal is to knock down the biggest bird, but once you get out there, you're like, yeah, I just want to kind of take this a little slower pace. So it's a fluid thing. Best laid plans of women turkey hunters and mice and men, whatever.
Yeah.
It's gonna probably change depending on circumstances.
I like it. Kelly, you got anything to add for preseason scouting weeks?
No, I think let's hop into what some of the day before, day of the hunt kind of stuff looks like.
Perfect. What does that look like, Kelly?
Day before, I mean, once we get into the turkey season, my turkey stuff kind of never leaves my vehicle. I feel like I'm always ready to go. You know, I've always got a variety of clothing in the vehicle. Maybe my firearm comes in and out of the vehicle depending on where I'm going. My decoys are in there, but just making sure that I have all my calls, my snacks, water, you know, and I try to bring, you know, a variety of gear to make sure that I can be comfortable no matter what happens. So whether that's knee boots versus hiking boots, you know, layers that I can take on and off, different, if I can, maybe even different types of layers of camo, whether that's a heavy camo jacket versus just a long sleeve t-shirt, depending on what the weather might be. Because in late April, early May, that weather can still be pretty chilly in the morning, and then by the time we get to the 10 o'clock hour, it can start to get really warm and humid. So just being prepared that way, I think the day before is helpful. And potentially what you might be doing the day before you go out too is going out to do something that we call roost a bird. So the night before you go on your morning hunt, you might be going out to see if you can get a tom to gobble at you from his tree that he is roosting in. So you'll go out around sunset, a little bit after sunset, and potentially do something like call on an owl hooter call that you've seen myself mention in some of our Facebook chats. The tom sometimes will do what we call a shock gobble back at an owl hoot. They do that naturally. They get, it's almost like they're getting taken by surprise and then they gobble back at it. It's sort of this knee-jerk reaction for them. So, but hunters might use that to their advantage to try to locate that bird, again, the night before in his roost tree, so that you have an idea of where maybe you should go in the morning, where you could try to set up to, like you said before, Lyna, either intercept him as he's coming into an agricultural field in the morning, or if you think you can get really close to that bird when he's on the roost and call to him even when he's still up there in the morning, and then when he flies down, he's right in your lap. Those are the kinds of things you might be trying to do by, quote, roosting a bird at night, the night before. When we get into the late periods of the turkey season, and daylight goes really long and it's late into the evening when you maybe would be roosting a bird and you're getting up really early the next day to chase them again, it can be pretty dang exhausting. So enjoy the middle periods of turkey season where you have a little bit more time to sleep and you do have time to roost a bird at night and still go home and go to bed and get a good night's sleep before you are going to get up the next day.
What time are you getting up to hunt? So give me the bedtime, wake up time there.
Oh, it depends. I mean, it depends on if I'm hunting public land, and I don't, Bill, you're hunting all private, right? If I'm hunting public land, I'm up early to try to get to my spot before somebody else does and get settled in. And then in case somebody else even, once you're out in the woods on public land, nobody knows where, maybe nobody knows where you are. And so if they come in later and walk in, I want to just be prepared to be able to shine my flashlight or whatever, be settled in case they show up. But it depends. I mean, I still am impacted by my dad thinking we needed to be out there an hour before sunrise or an hour before the gobblers start going. And now I usually take it a little bit easier, especially as the season drags on. As long as you can get to a spot unseen potentially by those turkeys in the morning. So you could still do that theoretically when they're gobbling. And turkeys are finicky. They generally have a time when they start to gobble before sunrise, but some mornings, if it's misty or cloudy or whatever, it's still sort of a mystery to us why toms decide to gobble or not gobble and what time they do so. Maybe they won't gobble until they are ready to get down out of the tree, and that might be well after sunrise, depending on the weather. So it'll depend on what your plan is for the day, what time you're going to get up and try to be settled into your spot.
Thank you.
Yeah, so once we know where we're taking you, we'll figure out what the travel time is to get there, how much time you think you're going to need to get your stuff out of the vehicle and get organized, how long it's going to take to walk into where it is that you're going to hunt that first part of the morning. So to factor that all in, and then you backtrack and figure out when you need to go to sleep or when you're going to try to go to sleep, because you're going to be really excited and it might be hard to fall asleep. You might have to have a little glass of wine before bed.
Awesome. I like this hunting. It's a prescription. It's not a choice.
Exactly. So we got day before the hunt covered. Mike, Lyna, any questions? So gear, snacks, travel time, get your butt to bed, get an alarm set for the morning.
I'm good.
I just want to say a quick thing about snacks, that if you've got stuff like granola bars and crinkly paper where you're trying to open it up, that if it's a really still morning or whatever part of the day and that sound travels, that can potentially spook off a bird. So what I usually do is I unwrap my snacks and I put them like in paper towel, and that way you don't have to worry about making noise when you're opening stuff up. Same thing for like, gum or cough drops and things like that. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but I was hunting with one of my girlfriends once when we just totally got busted for that. We were watching a fox come in and we had no idea there was this turkey, and we're just kind of whispering and laughing and enjoying the fox. And then she goes to open up something, I can't remember what, probably a bag of chips. And we heard the bird flush and just caught the tail end of it, literally flying away. So, we had a fox hunting a turkey while we were hunting a turkey, and then we blew the whole thing by making noise at the wrong time.
Or you could pull a Bill's dad and have the noisiest snacks and still get animals. Right?
Yeah.
My dad is the worst. I'm going to take out this chunk, not where I say he's the worst, because he already knows I tell him that all the time, but that snack part, he brings the noisiest bags. I don't understand where because he was the noise movement police when I was a kid. I got the suffering is optional part of hunting that I'm a big fan of, that Peggy supports, was not an option for me as a child. So everything was, no, don't do that, just crack down on. And now that he's older, we'll be prepped for turkey hunting, and all of a sudden I'll hear those sun chip bags. He'll have the little pocket bags, and I'll just hear that open and then just crinkle, crinkle, crinkle all morning long. And I'm like, what are you doing? Anyway, I could rant on that forever. And he still gets birds. I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense. But anywho, We're off.
Can I make a proposal to Mike? Mike, I think we've got a whole fats special dinner here. So one of the we have to work with David, but one of the drinks will be called the Run and Gun, and then one of the menu items will be called muffled snack. So you have to. I want you thinking about what would you serve as a muffled snack? Okay.
Right. Okay.
I like it.
I'm coming up for that.
All right. We got 11 minutes. Lyna's got a hard stop at 9. So day of the hunt. We've been waiting for this. Calls. Lyna just bought herself some mouth calls. Super pumped for that. Kelly, Peggy, if you could walk us through day of the hunt. So we got out there. We listened to Sylvester, Kelly's dad. We're an hour ahead of sunrise. Take it away. What's going on? What's happening? Let's stick with just like textbook morning, like what you want to happen. The birds are receptive. They're calling back. Let's go. What's happening?
You first, Kelly.
Oh man. textbook morning hunt, which rarely happens, but everybody hopes for. You get out there, the birds are gobbling their faces off, and you're in a great spot pretty close to those birds. They fly down off the roost and they walk right past you, or they walk into your decoy setup. If you're using decoys, they come right into your calling, right off the roost, less than 10 minutes, and your hunt is essentially complete. Which has its own pros and cons, right? It can be super exciting. That's what what I would call a textbook hunt, but then your hunt's over. And so I live for mornings where I get to hear those turkeys gobble. So as many mornings as I can get of that is what I want. But that would be classic. What more frequently happens is those birds are going to gobble. You're going to get really excited. They're going to tease you, and then they will go some other direction away from you from where you're hunting, and you will just think about them for the next couple hours. and they'll gobble, and you'll think maybe they're getting closer now, but then they just sort of maybe drift away into some other part of the woods, onto a different property. And then you've got to move to plan B, C, D, E for the next little chunk of time that you're going to hunt, or maybe you go home and go to breakfast, something like that. But that's often what happens in the right off the roost time. Is we're always so hopeful as turkey hunters that that's when it's going to happen. That's when you're going to get the bird, is right off the roost. And more often than not, you don't get them right off the roost. And then there's sort of this lull that happens in the morning so the turkeys all get down on the ground, the hens do some feeding, they do some breeding, and then the hens sort of disperse out into, if they're nesting, then they go do their thing and they sit on their nest, and the toms kind of quiet down and start to make their plan for the day of like, okay, well, maybe I'll go hang out here and look for ladies, or maybe I'm going to just stay right here, but not say anything and hope the ladies still keep coming around. And, so you just you do a lot of listening once you hit that mid-morning period. At least I do, to just sort of assess, okay, what are the birds going to do now that they're on the ground, have done a little bit of their romance with each other, and how can I maneuver around those birds maybe to make another move for the next couple hours. Or maybe I'm just going to go to breakfast. Phil loves to go to breakfast, I bet, by 8:00.
So I would add that as you're walking into your site, it's really important to go slow, because especially if it's cold and you've got a lot of clothes on, you don't want to get all hot and sweaty, because once you sit down, 20 minutes later, you're going to be freezing. So going in slow, both to be quiet and both so you don't get overheated. And then once you get in your blind, if it's a pop-up blind or if you're doing a ground blind with natural materials, to get yourself really comfortable, and then start taking a look at different areas where it's possible that if a turkey stood there, could you get a shot at it? So your mentor will help you judge distances. Sometimes I will, like in a big open field where there's nothing to have a whole lot of reference to, when it's still dark, I will pace off the 20, 25, 30 yards and maybe just stick a stick in the ground, or maybe it's corn stubble, and I can just, bend over one piece of corn that I can keep my eye on. So I know that that's 25 yards. As soon as the turkey is there, that would be a safe distance for this particular hunter to make an effective shot. So, and then the other part about that first thing when you're sitting down after you get comfortable, to bring your gun up. If you've got a blind that has, you know, windows in it, to be able to make sure that you can comfortably get the gun out the window to make a shot, and that you've got enough space in the blind so that when you're trying to, oh my gosh, there's a turkey, I got to get my gun up, so that you're able to do that safely. You know, keeping your muzzle in a safe direction as you're maneuvering it in that smaller space. And that can be a little bit of a challenge, but if you practice that quietly while it's still dark, while you're waiting for those turkeys to gobble, I always find that's a good thing to do to help be prepared. If you haven't ever done it and all of a sudden there's a turkey standing there, it can be a little internal chaos in the blind, like, oh my gosh, look, blah, 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 blah. And it doesn't need to be that high anxiety. It's still exciting. You know, when the turkey comes in, even if everything is super smooth, your heart's still going to be going. So you want to take all those questions and guesswork about out of that.
So we're set up. We walked in slow for multiple reasons. We're set up, guns ready, we're comfy. What's next, Kelly? What's happening? Turkey, once again, textbook day. Gobbles are coming in hot. What kind of calls are you using, and how are you implementing them?
If when the turkey's still on the roost, maybe we're doing some really light calling just to let him know that Tom know that we're here. And if you listen to turkeys long enough, when you get out hunting, you might hear hens doing that same thing. They'll be yelping real lightly, even when they're up in the trees as well. Just sort of assessing the situation for the morning, telling each other where they're at. Okay, I'm going to go fly down here. See you later. All those kinds of things are happening. And so you're trying to mimic those behaviors. And so if I'm trying to call real quiet in the morning, I don't know, I can call pretty quietly on my mouth call, Lyna, depending on how much tongue pressure you're putting on that diaphragm call. I can call pretty lightly on that. And then I don't have to move. Not moving in the morning too is, I think, pretty critical. If a Tom is up in a tree, especially when we don't have any foliage yet, he can see down to you depending on how close you are to that bird. And so you don't want to make a ton of movement when he's still up there if you think he can see you. So I often will use a mouth call, but I can call pretty quiet on just about anything else. Quiet, intermittent calling in the morning until you can sort of sense when the turkeys are starting to get wound up in the morning, depending on the mood they're in for the day. And I just sort of let their mood dictate how much calling I'm going to do, what kind of calling I'm going to do, and mimic a lot of the sounds that I'm hearing, at least for the first little while of the morning. And then as the day wears on, maybe I'll get more aggressive depending on what I feel like doing. But this pattern of, like, you know, hearing gobbles, making a plan on a turkey, getting into a spot, waiting for him to show up, happens over and over and over again as you hunt throughout the day. The morning time is just kind of this glorious, beautiful time where you think you have it figured out. And then the rest of it is sort of, you know, you're making a plan sort of as you go. But it's all a lot of the same line of thinking. You're trying to find a bird that's being cooperative, is gobbling, that maybe you can call in, or maybe you just have a really good idea where the pattern of those turkeys for the day. You know that they're going to be at 1 p.m. This bird struts in this field, and you can just slip in there around noontime and have them right in your lap without doing any calling, which is another, you know, just as sporting of a way to go after a turkey as calling one in, if that's your goal. So, but being able to interact with the bird is always super fun too.
So listen, I'm spending enough time learning the calling. I'm going to need that to work. So this thing, let's talk about this thing. Like, okay, so I've been watching videos, but they don't tell you, like, really how it feels in your mouth. So you put this thing in your mouth. And right?
It's not food. So it's weird to have in your mouth.
But I thought I'm concerned about efficiency and moving through the forest. So if I can learn to do this, it'd be awesome. But so far, I make a lot of spit Here's what I've done. I've tickled my tongue like crazy. I've made a lot of spit, and then I sound like something that's dying. That's where I've gotten so far.
That's perfect. I think, Lyna, it does have to be, your call can be somewhat uncomfortably close to your soft palate in the back. Yeah, you just gotta keep blowing it until you can make any sound. Any sound is productive when you're learning how to use these things. But what I try to keep in mind too is that the back part of your tongue is sort of what holds that call up to the top of the roof of your mouth.
Oh.
So when I say tongue pressure, I mean like not the tip of your tongue. It's actually the back part of your tongue that's holding that call sort of in place so that you don't spit as much. And then you're just blowing the air.
Oh, that's a good tip. That helped.
And then you just practice.
Nobody says this. You have to breathe in to breathe out. I'm just saying. That's a critical piece of data.
A lot of diaphragm pressure. I mean, just if you've ever been trained in singing, it's that diaphragm pressure that comes from the chest that really gets that fast pulse of air across that call. So it's not just like you breathing out naturally. It's diaphragm quick pressure that helps get that air, the appropriate level of air across the reeds of that call.
Very surprised by the tongue tickle. It was like, wow. I don't know if I'm going to make it through this.
So I think a nice alternate to the mouth call is also just a basic push pin call. I don't know if you guys looked at all the different calls last week, or
we did not look at a push pin. Yeah, that was one that I don't have.
They tend to be really easy for beginners to use. You can do soft clucks, you can do purrs pretty.
Nice or Karen too.
You can, they tend to not be very loud. So when you're yelping, if it's windy, that might not carry very well. You can also use two push pin calls together to make the sound of turkeys fighting. And sometimes that will cause like a boss tom to come running in to go, all right, what's going on here, and get involved in that. So I've actually had that work a couple of times, not harvested a bird in the situation, but got birds running in by making fighting calls. So I really kind of am a fan of those push pin calls for that reason. Not just exclusively, you have to, integrate the other calls as well, because you never know what's going to turn somebody on. But I think those are a good option.
So many life mottos. So many life mottos.
All right, Lyna, it's 9:02. I guess we'll let you go. Do you have any last things, or are you good?
Hashtag, you never know when you're going to turn somebody on.
There you go.
Bye, gang. Nice
Bye,
to see you.
Bye.
All right, crew. Mike, questions, concerns?
I don't believe so. I mean, it's getting close. It's getting exciting.
That's right. We're going to get boots on the ground next week, pattern some shotguns. We've got Day of the Hunt calling. What else should we wrap up with, Kelly and Peggy?
Maybe real quick, since we have the chef himself here, if you're fortunate enough to get a bird, what can you be doing to just make sure that you're doing the best you can to have a quality meat, have a quality protein after the fact? I can tell you what I do. I mean, in the past we have plucked whole birds and cook them that way. I tend now to just breast them out, take off thighs and legs. But I'm sure Bill has other ways that are better at utilizing more of the meat and certainly the organ meats that than I do. But I mean, I try to process the bird as quickly as I can, get that bird cooled down, slowly cool the meat down, and then if I'm going to eat it right away, put it in the fridge. If I'm going to eat it later, put it in the freezer. But trying to get as many of those feathers off as I can, just since they're not very tasty to have a feather in your mouth. And getting as much of the shot out of that bird, if you have any, in like the breast tissue, getting it out right away when you can see those wound channels. So, but I would love to hear if Mike has any other recommendations for how to what we could be doing to make sure that we have a quality product in the end from a poultry species.
I mean, I've not had to pluck a bird, so that's going to be a new thing for me. And I do know that the feathers are not fun to eat based on getting some ducks that were poorly processed before. Yeah, breasting out, I mean, getting as much meat off the bone. And if we can utilize the bone as well, we can make nice stocks that way. That really helps with using as much of the bird as we can. Yeah, Coach likes the awful parts, which it's understandable. There's some good tasty things. I'm not a gizzard fan, but give me the rest of it.
Bill's been getting me on the organ meats. I don't know, Bill, if you do any skin on, you use whole carcasses much more effectively than I do. I don't do any like skin on breast meat, skin on thighs and legs, like some people might do with waterfowl or something. I don't know if that's possible with a wild turkey or not, but I don't typically do those. I usually take skin off and then take out the meat for all of the portions I'm keeping.
Yeah. I love aging birds, which is extremely difficult with a large Tom or a Jake. I don't have the setup yet to properly age those. And I found the skin is like super just rubbery, like on those.
I agree.
So I'll skin Tom or a Jake. I usually go for the wing meat as well because there's usually a decent amount of wing meat on those. So I'll skin all the way up there. I've made my dad. He dabbled in taxidermy back in the day when he was in college. So he's shown me how to skin them so you can make like a turkey rug basically. So we've done a few of those, which makes getting all the meat really easy because you have the whole carcass. The skin is obviously removed, but then you can piece off the wings. You can spatchcock the rib cage and whatnot, because there's a ton of meat on the carcass, especially on those bigger birds. Hens, when I chase fall hens with the dog, they're usually, the jennies are substantially smaller. They're like large pheasant size sometimes. So those birds, it's a little easier to age. And I've plucked breasts on those. I've plucked the legs, but still with those, I usually piece them out and then age them, gutting them to cool the meat, cool the carcass quickly, and then I've eaten the skin on the smaller birds in the fall, and that's been really good. I'm excited to hopefully get some birds for Chef and see what he does, because the crew over there, you do some magic. I've had some venison from them. Shout out for that truffle mac with the venison. That was fantastic. And then the bear hams I have. Chef's team over there took care of those. Those are fantastic. We had our community challenge at the gym party last night, and I served smoked bear sliders, and most of them are city folk. Like venison, eating a deer to them is like crazy. And I've made squirrel chili for them when we had the bear sliders last night, and I would say 90% of people were surprised at how good it tasted and how not gamey it was. And this is, we're talking about a bear butt cheek here, so you're not going to get more wild or potentially gamey than that. And Chef, whatever you and the crew did over there, it was great. People loved it.
Yeah. Yep. Brian in those big cuts, and then Chef put it on the heavy smoker. So.
Yeah. Something I did not do early on in my turkey hunting days was brine birds or brine the meat, and that has been really helpful.
Yeah. It really helps get some flavor in there and help retain the moisture.
Yep.
As well. So
wild turkey can be super dry. Super gross if you are not patient with it. So yeah, brining, it's on.
Yes.
Yeah, injecting with like a marinade under the skin works really well too. Especially for a younger bird that's not going to be like a big tough old tom. And then the only whole bird I've ever done, and the only reason I didn't do it again is because it's just so much work. But we did pluck like a 14-pound jake and did the injection, and then did it in a cooking bag. And my then mother-in-law, who didn't really eat a lot of meat, just raved about it. And then my then father-in-law went out and bought himself a turkey gun with a red dot scope and 6 decoys. And he had never hunted turkeys before. He went and bought the whole deal because he liked the turkey so well that he was determined he was going to shoot a turkey. So it was wonderful for a treat, but it's like I would definitely do it again. I would help somebody if they had their first turkey and they had their heart set on a whole bird, because a lot of people do want that whole bird, but it's tricky. As you all know, it's tricky to pluck a bird and bake it with the skin on and have it turn out well. But that's one thing that worked for me. Cooking is a whole nother series of podcasts.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely be diving into those post season, and I'm looking forward to it. So I've shared some wild game with Lyna. I think she talked about it previously on the podcast. The wild turkey paella she made. I've given woodcock, rabbit, bear, venison, and touching on the gamey aspect of it. Like Lyna had mentioned earlier, with the friend of hers that had asked if she was actually going to eat the birds, because there is a large chunk of the population that hunts and doesn't eat the entire animal, if any of it, because of this this idea of gaming and what that is. You know, the flavor of a wild animal. Is it because it was improperly handled after the kill? What was the animal eating? I'm a huge proponent of that, especially with like the bear. I've had so many people. Bear meat tastes awful. Bear fat tastes awful. And it's, if the bear was eating, or raccoon is a big one. I know Kelly with Artemis Great Lakes Women of the Woods event, people were talking about how terrible raccoon tastes, or they've had bad raccoon. There's the glands in it, of course, but also is that if that raccoon's been eating garbage or like super crappy bear bait, like the classic donuts, candy, and all that, of course the animal is going to taste terrible. I've skinned a few of those animals, and they smell like rotten food. They'll smell like a dumpster, because they've been eating stuff we would normally throw away. Whereas if like my bear bait was apples, peanut butter, fermented maple syrup, and cherries, and that bear, everyone, even when we were skinning it, the taxidermist even made a comment how it smelled good. Like it wasn't. Like he's obviously skinned a lot of bears, and a lot of them smell awful. Could be the age of the bear, once again the glands, where it's living. But I am a big fan of like what the animal's been eating is also going to impact the quality of how it tastes. I don't know what everyone else's thoughts are.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you on that. I'm wondering though, did you have to take out a loan to bait that bear? He must be
So I don't want to give away all my secrets, but I know where a lot of apple trees are on public land. So that was just me going to these areas with buckets. Fermented maple syrup, I happen to know a lot of people with maple syrup, and a batch or two will go bad, or it'll get forgotten, sat around. So that was hooked up for free. Favors, barter system. Same with the cherries. Knowing people in the local food scene. There's a lot of food waste, and by waste I mean things that just typically wouldn't be used by people, right? Like you and I wouldn't be eating these things after they've been processed, but it's still, the end product is still food. Especially for like a bear. A bear's not going to care if it looks weird or ugly. There's a lot of these things that we're just wasteful about because it doesn't look like something you would see on the weird cartoon fruit pictures. So no, my bear bait I'm trying to think. I bought the peanut butter, and peanut butter, if you buy in bulk, isn't really that expensive. But yeah, that was it. The only thing I bought was the peanut butter.
Well, that's awesome. The amount of work that you put into it is the biggest component of it. And so you've earned that bear a million times over, it seems to me. And I know I can tell from your Facebook posts with your food that you're enjoying it a million times over as well. And that's a really important part of the whole hunt.
Definitely. Mike, what do you got to say about animals, taste, and what they've been eating?
I definitely think that affects what they've had. You know, especially we've done some cuttings of like grass-fed beefs and things like that, and you can tell even on that commercial level, like the flavor profile is different, and yeah, it has to affect the way it tastes. The nutrition that it's getting is the nutrition it becomes. So
Yeah.
Go ahead, Peggy.
I was just going to say quickly, even with farm raised animals, like early on 20 some years ago in my hobby farm career, I did raise chickens, heritage breed chickens. They were delicious, kind of like, I just wanted to get out of that. And then you guys know Tommy Enright from Black Rabbit Farm? He's like right across the highway from me. He does the most fabulous chickens. I'm like, I'll just leave it to the professional. And I had asked him at one point, like, wow, what do you feed those birds? The meat is just sweet and beautiful. And he told me it's a mix of his own, what he feeds, but that makes all the difference in the world. I mean, I felt like the birds that I raised, I got really good food for, but they were nowhere near as good as his. And so it absolutely makes a difference what the animal eats. Is it's going to either make or break it on your plate when you go to eat it.
Definitely.
Pop open that gizzard on a bird if you get one, and on a turkey, and see what they're eating. And it's interesting to see too how that even changes changes over the course of the season, depending on if you get an early harvested bird versus a late harvested bird. I love seeing what those things are eating. I think you'll be surprised. So they just are voracious peckers. They're eating at pretty much anything they can put in their mouth. And so it's just fun to see.
Agreed. All right. Well, we'll definitely come back to kitchen talk postseason. So Kelly, Peggy, what do we need to wrap up with?
Well, we could be here all day, because
some of us have to go to work, Bill.
I'm just excited to be able to get to the shooting range and to wander around and look for turkey sign and talk about how the actual hunt is going to go. So we've got next week and the following week to do that, right?
Yep.
Okay. Super excited.
Boom.
Yeah, have a blast. Enjoy the spring woods and the pulse of nature across the next month and a half. It's the best. I mean, it's unlike any other. The fall will sort of lasts forever. It feels like, maybe not, but it goes on forever.
Yep.
And then the spring happens in a blink. So enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah, you too, Kelly. Let us know how your turkey season goes.
Yeah, you bet. I'll share plenty of stuff. And maybe, I don't know, Bill, I've got a zone. You guys have zone 3 period 4 tags?
Yep.
So do I. Because I bought too many tags. So we'll see. Maybe we'll all get out a little bit together. That would be fun.
Yeah, we'll be hunting together in spirit. That's fun.
Awesome. Cool. Well, Chef Mike, you got anything before we wrap it up? And then we're going to get out in the field next week?
I don't believe so. I'm excited. Boots on the ground. Let's get outside.
Perfect. Agreed. Everybody that followed along, thank you to the mentors. I hope this was helpful. Mentees, same thing. And then hopefully everyone stays safe outside and enjoys spring. See you later.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you
Coming on,
guys.
Peggy.
It's been fun.